Good Monday afternoon. I am William Theo here for PTV News Now. Still atop PTV's news stories for the hour, some 3.1 billion in bootleg products like cigarettes, imported liquor, and even illegal drugs have been seized by the Bureau of Customs officials and personals for the first half of the month. So says BOC head honcho Bienvenido Rubio in a statement released earlier today, stressing the net haul covers the period from October 1st to October 14 and includes miscellaneous merchandise for products in the amount of 2.3 billion. A cargo water vessel estimated at 402 million carrying bootleg oil and fuel products, 42.16 million pesos in narcotics intercepted at the NAIA, and 22.3 million pesos in smuggled cigarettes, and 323 million worth of smuggled rice. Since the beginning of the year, customs officers and personnel have mounted some 1,400 anti-smuggling operations, translating into 72.09 billion pesos worth of seized merchandises and/or illegal goods, and surpassing all of last year's haul, amounting to 43.29 billion pesos, a 40% improvement with 2.5 months more left in the year. Rubio touted his office's performance thus far, underscoring the formidable accomplishment sent by the BOC as a record-breaking year in its history. And there is no let-up in Netanyahu's coalition government in its two-front war versus Hamas in Gaza and Hezbollah to the north and across the Lebanese border. Over the weekend, Israeli fighter jets and bombers pounded what Israel believed to be a Hezbollah command center in the Lebanese capital, while in the rubble city of Gaza, reports have it of 73 Palestinians and Hamas fighters killed in a single airstrike. The strafing from the air on the southern Beirut stronghold on Sunday is the IDF's response or retaliatory action for what Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu claims was an assassination attempt on him by Hezbollah in their latest 200 rocket fire attack, in which one landed near his residence. The IDF claims it hit a command center of Hezbollah's intelligence headquarters and underground weapons facility in Beirut. Meanwhile, Gaza's civil defense agency said an Israel airstrike on a residential area snuffed out the lives of at least 73 Palestinians in Beit Lahia in the north. For its part, the IDF said it struck a Hamas terror target and added the numbers or figures reported by the Gaza Ministry of Health are inflated or do not align with the information the IDF has. The United States is spearheading a coalition of allies in enforcing sanctions against a warmongering Kim Jong-un and North Korea. This despite pushback from China's Xi Jinping and Russia's Vladimir Putin. VOA's Bill Gallio joined a Canadian military flight over the East China Sea, and he filed this report.
The Canadian Air Force is patrolling the waters off China's coast, a hotspot for sanctions evasion. This is where ships move oil to North Korea, defying UN Security Council resolutions. This Canadian crew is part of a broader sanctions enforcement effort by the U.S. and 10 of its allies. Major Doug Publicover is the commander of the Canadian crew.
It's our piece of the pie to contribute to the prevent some of the illegal ship-to-ship transfers, which are petroleum products into North Korea.
When a suspicious ship is spotted, the crew flies low, gathering evidence that could lead to ships being deflagged or seized. It's the kind of quiet operation that's been happening for years.
Most of the time these flights happen without attracting big global headlines. But one country that is noticing is China.
Soon after the mission begins, Chinese fighter jets appear, shadowing us for hours. These may be international waters, but we're in China's backyard. It's a backyard U.S. officials say is not adequately monitored, allowing North Korea to exceed its UN-mandated energy caps every year. China insists it is enforcing the sanctions, but also says they should be lifted. Russia, too, has grown closer to North Korea, restoring a mutual defense agreement and vetoing the renewal of a UN panel that monitored sanctions enforcement on Pyongyang. The U.S. and its allies this week announced a new body to replace the panel, but it won't have UN support, raising questions about its effectiveness.
There's no way that the US and its allies on their own can enforce UN sanctions so long as China and Russia are not willing to go along with such a process. But nonetheless, it can be a very useful mechanism by which to name and shame.
Doing that relies on these flights, which gather information that governments can then use to impose more sanctions.
It's a continuous circle. They give us information, we give them reports, and builds on the picture. And like I said, the ultimate goal to be the deterrence and the enforcement of the sanctions.
How well it can work without help from China and Russia is another question. But for now, the U.S. and its allies are trying to uphold these UN sanctions alone. Bill Gallo, VOA News, over the East China Sea.
And that's a wrap for this afternoon's set of breaking news stories. Join us anew later for tonight's set of breaking stories at the hour. Always stay connected by keeping it here for news you can count on. William Theo, thank you for watching PTV News Now.